Let my two closest friends cat sit in my apartment, and they used it to steal my life. While I was away, my two closest friends used my apartment to become me, opening credit cards, stealing mail, and booking a $30,000 Maldives trip in my name. Every memory and password became their weapon. Before we continue, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. This will greatly help me with promotion. Thank you. The first red flag wasn't the transaction alert. It was the silence. I was heating up leftovers after work, same frozen lasagna I'd eaten 3 nights in a row, when my phone buzzed with a fraud notification. $6, $842 approved at Maldives Pro Resort. I stared at it, confused. The Maldives? I laughed out loud at first. Like, sure, let me just forget a luxury vacation I'd booked with Monopoly money. I was about to mark it as a mistake when another notification came in. This time for a private yacht charter. $3,500. That's when I felt the drop in my chest. Not fear. Something colder. Heavier. My hands were shaking as I logged into my email. Buried in my spam folder were 3 welcome emails from credit card companies I didn't recognize, all under my name. And then, like fate had a flair for theatrical timing, my Instagram auto-refreshed. Chloe's story popped up. White sand. Champagne. A ridiculous floating breakfast tray in a turquoise infinity pool. The geotag read, Maldives Pro Resort. I didn't even blink. I just clicked over to Jessica's profile. Same setting. Same drinks. Matching swimsuits. They were there together. And I wasn't invited. No, it was worse than that. They weren't just vacationing without me. They were vacationing as me. I sat down slowly on the floor like my legs forgot how to stand. Chloe had been my best friend since sophomore year. Jessica came into our lives 2 years later. We called ourselves the Triangle. Stupid, but it meant something back then. Matching necklaces, group chats, weekly dinners. And now they were halfway across the planet, drinking cocktails on stolen credit under my name. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just opened my camera and took a screenshot. Then another. And another. The fake charges. The email confirmations. The beach selfies. I felt this eerie stillness take over. Not numb. Just done. They thought I wouldn't find out until they were home. That I'd panic and call banks too late. That I'd be too ashamed or too heartbroken to fight. They were wrong. I picked up my phone again, opened my contacts, and hovered over a name I hadn't called in years. I didn't feel angry. I felt surgical. Then I hit dial. They say hindsight is 20/20, but I wish I could go back and slap myself with it. Chloe and Jessica weren't just friends, they were extensions of me. We called each other sisters. Our lives were stitched together across years of sleepovers, breakups, birthdays, and breakdowns. We shared everything. And I mean everything. That's what made the betrayal feel like acid in my throat. I still remember the first time Chloe cried in my arms, her junior year breakup with Matt. She didn't go home that night. She stayed on my couch for 3 days. And when Jessica's mom got sick, I drove across the city at 2 a.m. to pick her up, no questions asked. We built our own little universe, one where trust was currency and nothing was off limits. So when Chloe forgot her Apple ID password, I gave her mine so she could use my backup. When Jessica needed to book a flight and her card declined, I paid with mine and she paid me back later. I never thought twice. We even joked about it. If I ever go missing, these girls have all my answers. It wasn't a joke anymore. They knew my security questions. My first pet's name. The street I grew up on. Chloe helped me fill out a passport renewal once. Jessica had access to my Amazon account and Netflix. They even had the spare key to my apartment. We called it our emergency sister kit. Looking back now, I see it for what it was. I handed them the keys to my life and never imagined they'd use them to lock me out. I remember one night, a year ago, Chloe got drunk and said, "If we ever go broke, We should just steal your identity. You've got the best credit score. We all laughed. I laughed the hardest. It wasn't funny anymore. I scrolled through our group chat, which had been oddly silent since I left for my cousin's wedding in Arizona last week, the same trip they insisted I take because I was so stressed. Chloe even offered to watch my cat. Seriously, girl, take a break. Let us hold down the fort. I thought it was love. Thought it was support. Now I saw the setup. Get me out of the way. Gain access to my apartment. Use my router. My laptop. My documents. They didn't need to hack me. They were me. That was the part that made me sick. Not the money. Not even the theft. The intimacy of it. The way they turn every moment of closeness into leverage. Every late-night secret into intel. Every kindness into currency. And I let them. No boundaries. No suspicion. Because I thought we were solid. Because I believed sisterhood meant safety. I kept reading through our old texts, watching the evolution. Birthday plans, movie nights, crying emojis, and love you-s, all just prelude to this. But I wasn't broken. Not yet. Because now I had a story to write. And they were going to play the villains. The irony is, it was my dream to visit the Maldives. I used to talk about it all the time, how I'd save up, how I'd book one of those glass villas hovering over the water. Chloe used to roll her eyes and say I was such a Capricorn. Always planning, never spontaneous. Jessica once sent me a Pinterest board full of beach dresses and said, "Manifest it, babe." Well, they manifested it using my name. The trip had been a running fantasy for the three of us, like a glittery mirage we'd chase when life got heavy. But life did get heavy. Layoffs hit my company last spring. I kept my job, but barely. I was juggling bills, credit payments, and freelancing on weekends to keep my head above water. So when Jessica suggested they go without me, "Just this once, you can catch the next one," I smiled and said I understood. And when Chloe offered to catsit so I could still go see my cousin in Arizona, I called her an angel. They made it all so easy. So effortless. "Go relax, we'll hold it down," Chloe said, tossing me my suitcase with a grin. I hugged them both before I left. While I was on a bumpy economy flight to Phoenix, they were applying for credit in my name. 3 cards. All approved. All sent to my apartment mailbox. They must have planned it for months. Knew my patterns. Knew I didn't check my physical mail often. Everything I needed came digitally. With me gone and Chloe watching the place, they had full control. The worst part? I had left my laptop on the kitchen counter. The sticky note with my saved passwords was still inside the drawer where Chloe had helped me organize just weeks earlier. And they used it all. 1 card for the flights. Another for the resort deposit. A third for excursions and spending money. They maxed them all within 5 days. But they were smart. Calculated. They didn't use the cards in the U.S. Didn't buy anything that would trigger an immediate alert. Everything was charged overseas, until one of the banks finally flagged it as suspicious. That's the only reason I even found out. They knew exactly how long they had before I came home. A perfect crime, wrapped in a bow of friendship and trust. I remember landing back in town and grabbing dinner alone, texting our group chat to say I'd landed safely. No response. I assumed they were busy or asleep. By the time I got home, they were already across the world, sipping drinks on the deck of a private boat, tagging #paradise on photos they'd taken using my stolen identity. I looked around my apartment and felt the violation before I even knew the full story. My cat looked fine. The place was clean. But the energy had shifted. Like the air had been used up by someone else. Like my home had been occupied in my absence, not by guests, but by thieves. It was personal. It was surgical. And it was so stupid of me. I sat on my couch, phone in hand, and started cross-referencing everything. The trip dates. The mail delivery logs. My own itinerary. The dots connected themselves, like puzzle pieces slamming into place. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was betrayal with a plan. And I was done pretending I didn't see it. The thing about betrayal is, it doesn't come with a scream. It comes with receipts. The night after I got back, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, opening every inbox I had. Email. Bank accounts. Online shopping portals. I pulled up every welcome email, every shipping confirmation, every balance notice buried in junk folders. 3 cards. Each one opened in my name using my full SSN and my home address. My signature forged. The same cards now funding the Maldives dream trip they'd once promised we'd take together. The total balance was already pushing $31,000. I started listing each charge, one by one, matching it to photos on their social media. Jessica toasting with champagne? $290 bottle, billed under room service. Chloe in that white swimsuit with the macrame cover-up? $220, bought at a boutique tagged in her Instagram caption. Parasailing video? $480. Private dinner on the beach with a violinist in the background? $1,100. They were documenting their crimes like influencers. Every luxury, every indulgence, perfectly curated for likes, and perfectly traceable. I wasn't angry. Not in the traditional sense. I was methodical. Focused. Like the betrayal had activated something mechanical in me. It was surgical now. They cut me, so I was going to cut back, cleaner. Deeper. I created a folder on my desktop. Labeled it Reclamation. It held screenshots, PDFs, date-stamped posts, and a Google Doc of every item tied to each charge. I even pulled my apartment building's security footage from the days I was gone. Chloe was on camera checking the mail. Twice. She smiled at the doorman. Jessica's fingerprints were on one of the shipping boxes I found in my trash, the one from the expedited delivery of their beachwear. Every minute I spent digging, I felt stronger. The image of them laughing under palm trees only added fuel. They thought they were safe. That I'd never find out. Or worse, that if I did, I wouldn't have the guts to act. They didn't know I'd already spoken to all 3 credit card companies. Froze every account. Flagged every transaction. They didn't know I'd set up fraud alerts with every agency and filed an identity theft report. Didn't know I had already submitted an affidavit to the FTC and opened a police report with documented evidence. But the cherry on top? The Maldives Pro Resort had a strict guest verification process for any flagged bookings. All it took was one phone call. I gave them my ID, my passport scan, my police report number. They put me on hold for 11 minutes. When the manager came back, he said, "Thank you for alerting us. Your friends will be handled accordingly." I asked what that meant. He simply said, "Don't worry. They won't enjoy the rest of their stay." I sat back, closed my laptop, and finally smiled. For the first time in days, I slept like a baby. They called me the next morning. Blocked number. I didn't pick up. Then Chloe texted, "WTF is going on? Our cards aren't working. Are you okay?" I stared at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. A dozen possible replies flashed through my head: cruel, clever, devastating. But I settled on the simplest truth. "Your vacation is over." Then I blocked her. Jessica tried next. Her message was longer, frantic. "Hey, this is some kind of mistake, right? Please don't freak out, we can explain everything. Just answer." But I didn't want an explanation. I already had one, 42 pages of it, compiled, sorted, and sent to 3 banks, 2 credit bureaus, and a detective with the NYPD's Financial Crimes Unit. I let the silence sit. By the time I checked the resort's page, I saw what, handled accordingly, meant. Their check-in photo, the one with all 3 of us grinning in white linen, was gone. Their posts dried up. Their stories stopped. Then Jessica's entire Instagram went dark. Chloe's next post was from an airport terminal, captioned with a single smile emoji. They'd been kicked out. I later found out the resort had confiscated their keycards and held their passports for verification. They weren't arrested, not there. But they had to find a way home with no money, no working cards, and a frozen joint account they didn't know I had access to. You'd be surprised what you can freeze once you report identity theft with legal documentation. Their return flights were cancelled due to the fraud alert. They had to rebook using Chloe's dad's emergency fund, and based on the angry voicemails he left me, that conversation didn't go well. By the time they landed, a detective was waiting with a subpoena. I didn't know it would happen that fast. I expected weeks of red tape. But the timing worked in my favor. International fraud, identity theft, and digital evidence piled a mile high. Chloe tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding. Jessica said I had given permission. That's when the screenshots came in handy. Thanks for letting us use your place this week, you're a lifesaver. Don't worry, I shredded that mail for you. Logged into your Amazon to grab something. Hope that's okay. Every favor they'd done became a nail in their own coffin. They thought I'd cry. Collapse. Apologize for being difficult. They never expected me to fight back. When Chloe finally got me on the phone, through a mutual friend's number, her voice cracked. She actually had the nerve to say, "I miss you." I waited a beat, then said, "I don't know who you are anymore," and hung up. No yelling. No sobbing. No second chances. Just a clean, merciless goodbye. They weren't my friends. They were con artists dressed in sisterhood. And I was done keeping quiet for people who saw my trust as currency. They came back to a war zone. Jessica's parents were furious, not just because of the fraud, but because of the shame. Her dad was a retired attorney. Her mom taught ethics at a local college. It wasn't just illegal, it was humiliating. Chloe's family was worse. Her father left me 3 voicemails, screaming about how I'd ruined her future. He didn't mention the identity theft once. Just the fallout. The reputation. The misunderstanding. It was never about what they did. It was about who saw it. I didn't reply to anyone. I didn't owe them clarity. I owed myself peace. Meanwhile, the police report ballooned into something bigger. The detective called to say they were looking at a multi-state financial case, possible wire fraud, mail fraud, and identity theft across federal lines. Because they applied for credit while I was out of state, and because some of the purchases were tied to online platforms in multiple jurisdictions, the case had teeth. They weren't arrested. Not yet. But the fear in their eyes at the preliminary hearing told me everything. Chloe looked small. Jessica didn't meet my gaze. They tried to apologize after. They stood in the hallway like schoolgirls caught cheating on a test. "Can we talk?" Chloe asked, her voice all breath and desperation. "We messed up," Jessica added, like they dented a car instead of shattering a friendship. But they weren't sorry. They were scared. I didn't flinch. "You didn't just steal money," I said. "You stole me." They stood there speechless. And for once, I didn't fill the silence. I let it swallow them. They tried texting. Emails. Even sent flowers once, with a card that read, "Please forgive us. You matter." I shredded it. Not out of spite, out of necessity. Forgiveness implies I owe them something. That I need to repair a bridge they burned and danced on. No. I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance. And more than that, I wanted safety. I wanted to know that I would never again mistake someone else's comfort for my own protection. I changed my locks. Closed my accounts. Switched phones. Froze every credit line and put alerts on all future applications. It took weeks of paperwork, hours on hold, and more than one emotional breakdown. But I was building something now, not revenge, not a comeback. A firewall. The detective called last week to say they'd likely settled the case without jail time, but with financial restitution and a formal record. I said that was fine. Because what I needed wasn't prison bars. It was closure. And the space to reclaim my name without them whispering behind it. It's been 7 months. Most people assume the hardest part was the fraud, the debt, the legal mess, the financial cleanup. But that wasn't it. The hardest part was looking back and realizing how much of myself I gave away without hesitation. How I made love and loyalty a one-way street and called it friendship. Cleaning up the wreckage was tedious but manageable. I filed paperwork every lunch break for a month. Put credit freezes in place. Bought a year's worth of identity monitoring. Even went to the DMV twice to update my state ID. But rebuilding trust? That's slower. I flinch now when people ask for my Wi-Fi password. I hesitate before sharing a vacation plan, even with coworkers. I don't leave my laptop open in anyone's house. And when someone calls me, sis, too soon, something in my chest locks up. It's not fear. Not exactly. It's a scar. A healed-over reminder of how closeness can become camouflage. I've kept my circle small. Smaller than ever. And I'm okay with that. I have 2 real friends now, people who showed up during the fallout and never asked for anything in return. One of them sat with me through the bank meetings. The other brought me groceries when I was too emotionally drained to cook. Either of them posted about it. A few weeks ago, I got a message from someone I barely knew in college. Hey, saw what happened? Just wanted to say thanks for speaking up. I gave my best friend my info once. Never again. That one hit hard. I don't want to be the girl who got scammed. But I am the girl who learned. And if my story keeps even one person from handing over their keys to someone undeserving, then maybe something good came from all of this. Chloe and Jessica never served time. They paid restitution, had to attend court-mandated counseling, and were placed on probation. Their reputations? Shattered. Socially, they vanished. Deleted accounts. Left group chats. Disappeared from the circles we used to run in. Last I heard, Jessica moved out of state. Chloe's working some job her dad pulled strings for. Neither of them reached out again. I don't think they ever will. And I wouldn't answer if they did. Because there's a difference between closure and a comeback. This isn't their story anymore. It's mine. I got my name back. And this time, I know exactly who it belongs to.